On Christmas Eve, 1945, in the quiet hills near Fayetteville, West Virginia, a fire consumed the home of the Sodder family. When the smoke cleared, a mystery was born that would baffle investigators and haunt the American consciousness for decades. 5 of the 10 Sodder children were gone, vanished without a trace from the smoldering ruins of their 2-story house. The official story was that they perished in the blaze, their bodies incinerated by the intense heat. But for their parents, George and Jenny Sodder, that simple explanation never added up. They would spend the rest of their lives searching for answers, convinced their children were not dead, but had been taken. This is a story of profound loss, but it is also a story of extraordinary persistence, a chronicle of a family's refusal to accept an official narrative that felt hollow and incomplete. The Sodders were immigrants who built a life in the coal fields of Appalachia, close-knit and hard-working. Their tragedy unfolded as a nation celebrated the end of a world war. The questions that arose that cold December night have never been fully answered, leaving a void. The story of the Sodder children reminds us that sometimes the most haunting questions are never answered. To understand the scope of the Sodder mystery, you have to look at a map. It begins just north of Fayetteville, West Virginia. A hillside home along Route 16, the Sodder house. Remote, yet on a main thoroughfare. People and vehicles always passing. That mix would become a key factor in later theories. George Sodder, an Italian immigrant from Tula, Sardinia. He established a trucking business after years in the coal industry. Both George and Jenny were Italian-born. Their heritage shaped their lives, and some believe, the tragedy. George was outspoken, strongly anti-Mussolini, views not popular with everyone locally. Some speculated the fire was retaliation, an old-world vendetta. The map stretches across the Atlantic, to Sardinia. After the fire, tips and alleged sightings poured in nationwide. A woman in a St. Louis hotel claimed the children were with her. In Texas, a bar patron overheard talk of 5 children from a West Virginia fire, sightings in Florida, and pins across other states. The Sodders chased leads themselves, traveling countless miles. In 1967, a letter arrived with a photograph. The young man resembled what Louis might have looked like as an adult. On the back, a cryptic message. Some thought it placed him in Italy. They hired a private detective and sent him to Italy. The map of their search kept expanding. The story unfolds along a timeline marked by crucial moments and decades of waiting. Long before the fire, a family was building a life. George and Jenny married in 1923 and settled in West Virginia. Their family grew to 10 children. By the mid-40s, they seemed prosperous, but the months before the tragedy were unsettling. A stranger warned about fuse boxes. An insurance salesman allegedly threatened George. The timeline narrows to one night, December 24, Christmas Eve. The older children celebrated. Jenny let the younger kids stay up a bit. Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, the 5 who would not be seen again. Just after midnight, the phone rang. A wrong number. Lights were still on. The front door was unlocked. Unusual. At about 1:30 a.m., Jenny smelled smoke. The house was on fire. Confusion and failed attempts followed. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children escaped. But 5 were still upstairs. The ladder he always kept by the house was gone. It was later discovered 75 feet away, deliberately moved, it seemed. Both coal trucks inexplicably failed to start. Phone lines were dead. By morning, only a smoking crater remained. Chief F.J. Morris arrived around 8 a.m., hours after the blaze began. They said the fire was hot enough to cremate the children completely. Jenny, familiar with cremation, found that impossible. Even after extreme heat, skeletal remains are typically found. How could a fire that left appliances recognizable leave no bones at all? George preserved the site to enable a thorough search. He questioned how wiring could have caused such a fast, total burn. A repairman later confirmed the phone line was cleanly cut, not burned. In 1949, the Sodders hired a private investigator and Oscar B. Hunter, a pathologist. They conducted a formal excavation of the site. They found small fragments initially thought to be human vertebrae, The fragments were sent to the Smithsonian for analysis. The report concluded the bones were not from the Sodder children, likely from a male 16 to 23, with no signs of fire exposure. A turning point. The official story was, at best, incomplete. If the bones weren't their children's, whose were they? Had someone planted them to prop up a narrative of death? The Sodders came to believe the fire was a diversion, a cover for kidnapping. The search yielded no proof of death, only more questions and a lifelong quest for truth. Their investigation would span the rest of their lives. Faced with official indifference, George and Jenny began a public crusade. They offered rewards, $5,000, later $10,000. They printed and distributed flyers across the country. In 1952, the Route 16 billboard went up and stood for nearly 40 years. An insurance salesman had warned the house would go up in smoke. Another man threatened that the fuse boxes would cause a fire. A bus driver later reported seeing fireballs thrown toward the house. A hotelier said the children arrived with 2 men and 2 women the morning after. Then came the 1967 photograph, inscribed with a haunting message. 3 main theories emerged: accident, arson, or abduction. Accident: a flashover in a timber home hot enough to destroy remains. Arson: a deliberate fire born of vendetta or malice. Abduction: a coordinated plan. Cut lines, missing ladder, dead trucks, the fire as cover. Yet each theory struggles. Either the suspicious pattern, the missing remains, or the missing motive. If the children perished, why was no credible trace ever found? Even in extreme fires, something, bone or teeth, usually remains. Whose vertebrae were found in 1949? And how did they get there? Who cut the phone line? Who moved the ladder? Who disabled the trucks? And why the 7-hour delay in the fire department's arrival? Why did no one claim the reward? If the children survived, why no contact? Was the photo Louis or a cruel hoax?